So the Essenes, the Dead Sea Scrolls sect, people have heard about them, but they don't really know why they were living out in the desert. They actually split off the Pharisees over a calendar disagreement, which to us seems insane. Like, who cares? You mark the days,
We
big
also
deal.
have thousands of denominations based on really minor
Right,
differences.
Right. And some of those in antiquity were calendar too. So we can't laugh too much. But they actually split off them. And you say, what was the issue? The Essenes believed that if you take the text of Scripture at face value, you start the calendar, you start the world on day 4. And if you do that, and you calculate 12 months of 30 days, and that they inserted a day in between each fourth of the year, you have a 364-day calendar. You say, well, that's not an astronomical calendar. It doesn't work. They didn't care. Because if you take a mathematical calendar, what that meant to them was that was the perfect mind of God calendar. Why? Because every Sabbath occurs on the same day. Every festival occurs the same time every year. Just think of the Israelite calendar with weeks and booths and tabernacle, all this stuff. It always occurred on the same time every year. There was no disruption. You say, big deal. Well, it was a big deal because the Pharisees tied into an astronomical calendar, which means they didn't calculate for a leap year. That's why even today, they have to add a 13th month periodically to make Passover align when it should be. And the Essenes looked at that and said, you guys have a human calendar. You have to fiddle with it. You made it up. It's contrived. You should be using this calendar. Don't worry about what's going on astronomically. This is what the calendar God revealed because it is perfect according to his worship and his festivals, which is why we as priests need to be mimicking what's going on in heaven on earth. We need to have everything we do be in sync with this mathematically precise machine, like a cosmic machine. And they took it so seriously, they actually left the priesthood, went out in the desert, and then you have all these weird texts about them doing stuff in a temple. They don't have a temple. They're out in the middle of the desert. What they were doing is they thought if we don't observe the calendar, if we don't imagine ourselves to be in a temple and observe calendar, that the world will descend into chaos. So they actually believed that by literally going through the motions every year on all the festivals, that they were preserving order on earth because this is the way God wanted things to operate. And the Pharisees can do whatever they want. Now, the crazy thing is if you use their calendar, if you throw out what the Pharisees are doing and the calendars we use, theirs is the only ancient calendar that predicted in terms of a messianic window. See, like the 70 weeks of Daniel, every ancient group had their own way of handling that, kind of like today, Pharisees had their system, the Sadducees had their system, the Essenes had their system. The Essenes are the only one because everything's mathematically precise. You have Jubilee years, 49 years. You have Jubilees of Jubilees, 490 years, which coincides with Daniel 9. They noticed these things. And so they were interested in the ultimate fulfillment, the sort of the 100th Jubilee of Jubilees, this 4,900-year stretch. If you start it from day 1, which is day 4 of Genesis, and you move that out, what you get, depending on whether the Jubilee is the 49th or 50th year, you get a window from right around 10 BC to about 2 or 3 AD.
Oh, wow.
And they believe the Messiah is going to show up in that little window of time. And so it works. You actually get a hit there, as opposed to, plotting the Messiah at some other point, like in the Hasmonean dynasty or with John Hyrcanus and the Maccabees and all that kind of stuff. Theirs is the system that actually creates a window that works with Revelation 12, and it's the only one. So it's really interesting stuff. And they were the ones they thought that the Messiah would be a divine being. They called him the Melchizedek, the Elohim of Psalm 82. I mean, they're tracking on some really interesting stuff. But all of that is their messianic expectation.